Hello, everyone. Like to welcome you to my new platform where I'm going to be bringing to you people that I find inspiring. And I'm so excited to share with you my guest today, my dear friend, an entrepreneur, and life coach, JJ Rademaker. Welcome, JJ.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on with you right now. Thank you.
So happy to have you. Love for you to share with our friends here a little bit about kind of what you do and what it is that got you into this work.
Sure. So I'm a life coach, and I have come to this at a later phase of my career after having been an entrepreneur and an artist and a father. And I'm at the phase now where I'm really, driven by following my passion. And that is to support people on their journeys. Um, and life coaching is a really effective way for people to basically achieve their goals, to get from a place of, you know, baseline, normal, everyday functioning to thriving. And it's been really powerful for me, and I've seen it be powerful for a lot of my clients as well. It's really inspiring.
Mhm. Amazing. Such important and beautiful work that you're doing. And where I sit in supporting people through grief over these last many years, what I find is that the journey of grief can bring people inherently into an identity crisis, a place in their life where you tend to question, who you've been and what you want out of life and the idea of wanting to make meaning out of something that's happened. And so folks get to a place in their journey where they're looking at what's next. And my experience, with your work is that it's such a powerful tool for self-discovery. And I want to just invite you to speak a little bit to some of the kind of the process or some of the ways that you work with people to work with their own process of self-discovery.
Yeah, thank you. I would second your your statement there. You know, um, in amongst all the tragedy that comes with grief, um, I think on the back end there can be an opportunity for positivity and change, and to provide new perspective and a new outlook on the next phase of one's life. Um, And so the way I look at life coaching in this context is that it would sort of be, a real great phase 2 addition to one's growth journey. I think, at first during the acute phases of, dealing with the trauma of, a terrible situation, I think it's really important to, use tools like therapy and somatic techniques to, you know, get to a place where one is ready to move forward. And then when one gets there, I think that's where life coaching can come in, because the context may have really changed for somebody. Their world may be really shaken up. They may know that they want to move forward, but they may not know what direction to go in, or they may have a direction but they may not know what steps to take. And so life coaching works with clients in a non-directive way. That means not telling them what to do, but through the asking of really great questions to help them figure out how to move forward step by step to achieve their goals. There are tools that we can use as well. They're like little, personal surveys about, how they're feeling or what their passions are, or, what their key metrics for success are and things like that. And through, a deep look at who you are in a variety of contexts, and then the tools that a life coach can bring in terms of process and, a step-by-step approach with
Mhm.
plenty of sort of action oriented, processes, then, clients can find that clarity starts to come, steps start to be taken and there can be tangible progress.
Mm. So powerful. I mean, what I hear in this is that you have like a process for this thing that I'm calling self-discovery, right? A process, and there's metrics, and there's the right questions that you're asking to help people get clear on not only what they want and how they want to feel, but how to get there. And so there's a real forward moving part of this that you bring.
100%. It's very action oriented. The goal is to make tangible progress. And the goal is also to figure out what's best for each individual. It's definitely not a one size fits all. That's why, the skill of life coaching is non-directive again, where you're not telling anybody what to do because it basically stems from this foundational philosophy that everybody is so unique and so different that how
Mhm.
could even, the wisest person actually know what anybody else really needs. And so life coaching is this set of techniques and tools that a coach will use to help the client sort of figure out for themselves what the best next course of action is. And ends up being, there ends up being a double benefit, of course, which is that, you know, the client figures out, with a good life coach, the right questions are asked, the right tools are used so that the client can figure out what they need, and then they make tangible progress, and that's a benefit. And then the other benefit is that they are learning the techniques themselves.
Mhm.
So then as they move forward and the next problem comes up, they have, experience sort of solving their own problems.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
one of the goals is to sort of like coach myself out of a job, so to speak, where, clients learn the techniques themselves and then they don't need a coach in the future.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, these are skills for life that you're offering. So there's this huge aspect of self-empowerment, and there's such a beautiful opportunity that I hear for your clients to access your own inner wisdom, which is so in alignment with the mindful grieving work that I do. It's like you're helping people clear away and find clarity to to find the answers themselves, and then to have the tools to do that again and again. And I think that
Yeah.
empowerment part is so big, and I just want to say so important for someone when they're healing from loss. When things are out of our control, there can be this real like feeling of like the ground being taken out from underneath you, and that
Mm.
loss of control can be quite terrifying, and it can be a loss of a sense of our own power, and often sense of self. So what you're speaking to is such an amazing way that I hear to help someone rebuild, to gather their own confidence, and to be able to find the answers themselves with support, with a process that helps them get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think it's worth reiterating that it's important that this, be incorporated as a second phase of one's, recovery from the traumatic event.
Mhm.
I think, coaching is, you know, the way I like to explain it is if you have a mental wellness continuum
Mhm.
of say -5 to +5, where 0 is baseline functioning,
Mhm.
-5 is, dysfunctional, quote unquote, and then +5 is thriving. The coaching domain is 0 to +5.
Mhm.
So somebody who is at baseline functioning but wants to thrive,
Mhm.
if somebody is in a, you know, traumatic state and they are, below, they're having a hard time, with day-to-day activities, and, they may have gone through something super intense that is, has them in shock. That is not where coaching comes in. That's the domain of therapy
Mhm.
and, a bunch of other techniques that help people, move through that acute phase from the minuses back to 0. And then once they get to 0, I think phase 2 can come in and they can say, okay, this is the new normal. Where do I want to get to? I know I want to thrive. They either have a clear idea or they don't, but in either case, that's where a coach can come in and support that journey.
I love your clarity. I mean, it sounds like there's a really clear sense of scope of like what the right timing is in someone's journey to step into this, right? And
100%.
where they can get the most benefit from what you have to offer. Um, so
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back to the beginning for a minute, and I'm curious, what got you into this work? Like, what made you want to step in to be a life coach at this point in your life? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I had my sort of practical phase of my career where I sort of did the shoulds as best as I could,
Mhm.
but I've always had a penchant for wanting to inspire people. And that, for a while manifested as I was almost going to be a school teacher.
Mhm.
And but life pulled me in a different direction. I had different opportunities, but there's a part of me that has always sort of lamented that I didn't have that heart fulfillment of day to day, working with and inspiring people.
Mhm.
And so as I sort of reached this phase of my career and had a natural point of looking at, okay, what's next? There was closure on what I was doing before. And so then I was like, well, maybe I can incorporate that element of wanting to inspire people. Um, and so I learned about coaching. And at first, frankly, I was a little bit skeptical because, life coaches, to be completely honest, life coaching is different than therapy in the sense that it's an unregulated practice. And so you can get the good and the bad, right? You can get shysters or you can get people who say they're coaches but have never undergone any formal training. During my coaching certification program, I learned that, it's actually a very specific skill set that has been studied by psychologists. It's evidence-based. There's a modality that you're taught. And that modality has been shown to be effective over and over again. And there are specific tools that coaches in their certification process are given. And so the whole thing actually I by going through the certification, I just got even more inspired by this world of coaching. I think it's the fact that it's non-directive and empowers clients, and the fact that it's action oriented was just such a deal maker for me. I think there comes a time sometimes with talk therapy where you want to shift over into a more action oriented mode, and coaching is just so effective in that way. And you see these tangible steps and results from, this action oriented aspect of it, which has been so inspiring.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I can see your inspiration as you're sharing and
It's so cool. Yeah. Thank
and
you.
and being your friend. I mean, it's such a darn good fit for you in who you are in such a natural way that you can support people. Um, where do you feel you offer the most, I don't know if value is the word, but the most to your clients? Like what aspects of this I hear your passion for it as you speak about it, but is there an aspect of this that like lights you up the most or where you feel that you can offer the most support?
I mean, I think, what's special and awesome about coaching is that from the coach's perspective, it's the skill set of holding space for somebody um, so that they feel comfortable, maybe being vulnerable and exploring aspects of themselves that they maybe don't usually do in front of somebody. And asking great questions and reflecting back to them. And so it can kind of help clients with whatever they're looking for help with. Um, I've had, certainly I've had a bunch of clients who are looking for clarity on next phases of life. And that's really rewarding where, somebody comes in and they know that there's maybe more available to them, or there's just a little bit of existential angst about like, what am I doing? What's the meaning of like, what's my purpose? Am I doing what is best for me to be doing right now? Or, I'm ready for something new. And I have a list of tools that I can use. So these are like questionnaires and surveys that really help clients can sort of get to the heart of who they are, and then we combine that with what their specific goals are, and then the coaching methodology that happens in sessions, and then the action items that happen between sessions. And it's just so inspiring for me to find people getting inspired, to get clarity and to realize, whatever it is they needed to realize. So there's a lot there. I've also, helped clients who have, a sense of anxiety and they're trying to just reduce that and move forward. Or sometimes it's very specific goals. I also work with some young adults and kids, and it could be I want to, figure out how to make more friends, or I want to figure out, you know, how to get promoted at my job. These kinds of things.
Mhm. Yeah. So I hear there's a huge range, that people come in with. There's like the career goals of like I want to achieve this, but there's also the personal goals of like how you want to feel in your life and the things
Yep.
that perhaps bring you joy. So it sounds like it's certainly not a one size fits all. And what I hear is that you're meeting people where they are. And you have these tools and a process that can support people going through so many different kinds of things and different phases in their life.
100%. Yeah. And, coaching is client led.
Mhm.
So you never get into a coaching session, with a trained coach that where the coach will say, we should work on this today. It's always the client that's going to, suggest what they want to work on or tell you what they want to work on. And then it's my job to, you know, as effectively as possible, get to where they want to get to.
Yeah, yeah, that makes so much sense. I mean, what a
Yeah.
beautiful process. Um, Going back to again the personal, because I think your own journey is so interesting and in like informing this like
Mm.
this thing that you're stepping into and that you're doing now to support others. And I'm curious a little bit more about your own path and your own journey that has kind of shaped both like the passion that you feel in supporting others and the inspiration, and also just kind of who you are that has shaped what you're doing now.
Hmm. Well, I've had a interesting, not cookie cutter life. I was born in France by two American parents. And by the time I graduated high school, I had lived in three countries, gone to seven schools, and, five cities. So I moved around a lot and I spent a lot of time as the outsider
Mm.
as at school. And, I tend towards the introverted side of things. And so, that made it socially challenging for a good portion of my schooling years. And, the silver lining there, though, I think, is that I developed good observational skills and I developed, a sense of, I think, a pretty strong sense of empathy for others. As an outsider, I was often sort of observing how other people interacted and was started to recognize like, oh, that isn't making that person feel so good, or da 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 da, right? And so as that, as I grew up, and then with my entrepreneurial venture, as a boss and a company leader, I found that, one of my strengths was sort of working with my employees, understanding what their challenges and, gifts were and supporting them. It's one of the things that people often don't realize when you start a business, you end up being the chief psychologist of your employees.
Yeah.
And that was an aspect of the business I was pretty good at. And as I had mentioned before, I almost became a school teacher. And so when I had an opportunity to, figure out what was next for me, I wanted to incorporate, that ability to, be a good listener, have good observational skills, hold space for people, and, have empathy. And coaching became a really great fit for that.
Yeah. Wow, check so many boxes.
Mm.
Yeah, in some ways it sounds like your whole life has led you to this
Sometimes
place.
it feels that way. It definitely feels that way.
of supporting others. Wow. Well, you have so much to give, and I'm so excited for so many people out there to benefit from your big heart and your ability to listen and hold space and to offer this process. I love that there is such a process to take people through to support them in finding out who they want to be or how they want to feel and how they want to bring that forward. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
so, as we're kind of winding down, I want to just ask, as you're speaking here to folks who are at all phases of the grief process, but particularly those who have been in the journey and they are looking for like, what's next for me? I need support in figuring out what that is and then executing and bringing it forward. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for these folks on kind of how to get on that journey or get on that path?
Um, yes. Obviously everybody's so different, right? And that's one of the things that, you know, was drilled into us as we became certified coaches.
Mhm.
But I think, a couple of things come to mind here. One is that you're not alone. There are a lot of people in your position or in different positions that, you know, are having a hard time finding clarity on what's next and what should I be doing, and is what I'm doing best for me, what's best for me. Am I sort of following that right balance of what I should be doing with what my heart wants me to be doing? It's a and the world right now is just so confusing. There are so many conflicting messages. There's so much information out there. There's intensity in the news every day, and it can create this pervasive sense of fogginess and confusion. So one is just to let people know that like you're not alone. This is if you're feeling confused about what's happening, what's next, and what you should do, um, a lot of people share that feeling. And then as far as you know, some tips or practical recommendations. I think a good exercise that I like to sort of lead with sometimes with people is to try and I'm a believer that we obviously get messages from our mind, but we also, I think, get messages from our heart and our gut. And sometimes, we put too much stake in what our mind is saying, and our mind is not always our ally. Sometimes it's telling us things that aren't true. Sometimes it's repeating old stories that don't need to be repeated anymore, etc. So, as much as one can tap into what, your heart is feeling, that a lot of times can be a truer guide to where your real heart and passion lies. And I heard a little nugget of wisdom in my younger years that like, if you follow your mind, um, your heart will end up in the situation that your mind brought it to, and it may or may not align and with where your heart lies. And hearts don't really adapt very well. But if you follow your heart, your mind will end up in a situation where your heart brought it, but our minds are super adaptable
Mm.
and they can reorient and figure out how to make the best out of this situation that the heart is in. And it can really lead to, a greater sense of sort of contentment and just satisfaction because, I think if our heart is happy, there's a lot that we have going for us, and in our minds are super powerful and can almost figure out anything, as long as our hearts are happy. So that's my one big piece of advice is try and quiet the mind and figure out what your heart is telling you, and that can sometimes give you a good sense of, okay, am I on the right track or am I not?
Mm, that makes so much sense. I love that. My heart liked hearing that too.
Thank you, Wendy.
So, will you please tell our audience here how they can find you, how they can work with you, what that looks like, and where they can, how they can reach out and connect?
Oh, thank you. So my coaching business name is Wise Inside Coaching. So wiseinsidecoaching.com. That's my website. And then I can be emailed at jj@wiseinsidecoaching.com. And the name is basically a nod to my goal, which is to help people tap into their inner wisdom. It's not about me imparting any sort of, special sauce onto people. It's more asking the right questions, creating the right space, and going through the right process so that people can really tap into their own deep inner wisdom. So, Wise Inside Coaching is the best way to get a hold of me.
Thank you so much, JJ. It's been such a pleasure and honor to have you, and
Thank you.
look forward to continuing our conversation again soon. Thanks
Thank
everyone
you,
for
Wendy.
listening.
Thanks, Wendy. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
More soon. All right, take care, everybody. Much love.